Hey, Tim, thanks for joining us today. Today, we're going to talk about JTD Group's managed SDR teams service offers so that buyers searching or reviewing this listing in the Cloud Task Marketplace can have a better idea as to whether they want to invite someone from JTD Group to compete for their service request. We're going to just cover 3 basic questions, and without further ado, let's get started. Question number 1. Who is the best fit for this service offer?
Yeah, so the best fit for us is anyone that is selling a technology service. So that could be anything from, technology consulting. It could be a technology product, say like a software as a service product. It could be anything around, artificial intelligence, big data. So our sellers are all technology sellers. So that is the best fit for us. And from
Got it. So as long as they're selling technology, they should expect that if they partner with you, they will see success on their campaigns.
Correct.
Okay. So then regardless of whether they're starting with $0 of revenue and don't know anything about their market, or whether they have been in their market for 20 years and are crushing it, they should equally receive the same type of results.
Well, so I think it's different depending on where they are, right? So if they're really that ground zero, we're really trying to find those initial first customers. So, I think that's a different approach than someone that's fully ramped, right? So we've got customers that are on the lower end that have no customers. So we're trying to work with them to try to find product market fit, ideally paying, customers, but some of our customers that are venture backed may just be looking for pilots. So we work with a company called NetApp. They acquired one of our startups, and they weren't interested in revenue. They were just interested in getting a lot of adoption for their offering. Now that they're a part of NetApp, NetApp's looking for, okay, how do I get new logos and new traction within our largest, financial institutions? So I think it really depends on where they are in their journey. But given our background as technology sellers, we'll work with them to make sure that our approach will fit where they're at in their journey as a company.
Understood. So as long as they're selling technology, they're in the window, and you guys adjust strategies based on where they are in their company life cycle or brand life cycle.
Correct.
Awesome. Question number 2. What are the components of this service offer?
Yeah, so I think from a high level, when I say SDR as a service, really that's, what some people might consider lead generation, and that could be a marketing or a sales role. I obviously, as a salesperson, think it should be a sales role, but I don't necessarily know where my customers are going to be. So what we're offering to our customers is to help them identify what their ideal customer profile looks like, build out a list of targets or prospects that fit that list, and then try to meet the buyer or the prospect where they are. So it could be using LinkedIn because a buyer is active on LinkedIn. It could be email, and it could be just picking up the phone. So we have an omni-channel approach where we use LinkedIn, email, and cold calling to outreach to those prospects.
Okay, so it sounds like in this case that it's pretty flexible and adapted to what the client's needs are. So even with that omni-channel approach, you may use all 3 channels. You may use those 3 channels at different weightings depending on the situation, or you may or 2 of those channels instead of all 3, depending on what you're dealing with the client. Would that be an accurate recap of that particular aspect of it?
Yeah, so like e-commerce is an interesting one, right? So if you're going after really small companies, they might not even have profiles on LinkedIn. So if your ICP isn't on LinkedIn, we're not going to waste cycles going after your prospects if they're not there. But the goal is to really understand where your ICP is and meet them at that. And at least in today's world, those are probably the 3 biggest areas that we see is LinkedIn, email, and cold calling. And we'll obviously adjust. There's some other approaches if your ICP is different, but for most tech companies that works.
Okay, so when it comes to how you price this packaging, does the pricing change based on, or is there any limit on number of contacts? Let's say there was only one SDR that was going to be on the campaign. How many contacts could one SDR handle, or how many contacts would you try to be putting on a list for that SDR to handle in this service?
I mean, so it could obviously be a variety, but at just a basic level, I would say, for most of our customers, 1,000 prospects a month is a pretty good number. Obviously, for those of you in here, I mean, there's technology like automation, right? So if I want to call 1,000 people, I can do that in a very quick way. But the goal is really hone in on your top 1,000, right? I don't want to have 1,000,000 prospects and then reach them a little bit or just be spray and pray, right? So 1,000 is usually really good. If you have an enterprise like a NetApp, we only had like a half dozen customers, but within those organizations, because they were very large, we had a large number of people within the companies that we would try to target based on their ideal customer profile. So, but in terms of physical people, I think 1,000 is manageable, but we can scale up or down depending on the customer's ICP.
Okay. As far as building sequences, we know that you all create those scripts and so forth for those 3 different channels. How many touches do you say on average? Obviously varies by the client, but on average, how many touches might one expect you to use in a sequence when you think about unique touches per month per contact record?
Yeah. So again, I think it depends, but if you're using all 3 sequences, I would say for a lower level contact, you might contact them, 27, so 27 to 28 times, right? Like I forget the exact number that people recommend. So in the first month, I might send out, 3 sequences of 3. So the first sequence might be week 1, LinkedIn, email, phone, a couple days later, or the second week, then a couple days later after that, or the third week. So you're really looking at, 9 touch points within that given month for lower level contacts. And then for higher level, you may only want to contact them 3 times in a month, right? And then what we do is we generally will cycle out those contacts that we've already annoyed because the companies are big enough or your pool of companies is large enough that we can then go after net new prospects in month 2. But for those strategic accounts where you feel, hey, if I really get into that account or in front of that person, I'm going to hit my number or it's going to really impact my business in a positive way, we might do a 3-month outreach where we touch them 3 times in month 1, 2, and 3.
Got it. And when you mentioned lower level, higher level, are we talking about seniority level in the company, like their job titles?
Yeah. So it could be say you're going to a CEO of a startup, you're not going to want to hound the guy all the time, right? So you may, reach out to him three times in month 1, 3 times in month 2, 3 times in month 3. But if you're at a large company where I might have lots of directors and lots of VPs, then yeah, I might want to annoy a certain subset in the beginning. They're not engaging, they're not active, then maybe move to a different group of VPs or directors in month 2, right? Because I just have a lot more pool of people to reach out to. But
Understood.
then again, same CEOs you're not going to touch all the time in a given month and keep doing that every month on month.
Got it. And what should folks expect from you from the standpoint of performance reporting? Do you all do weekly standing meetings? Do you all have a customer portal, client portal that people log into? Are they getting it through the integration of their, CRM systems? How does that work with you guys for this?
Yeah. So typically, at least in the beginning, our customers like to have obviously weekly meetings, and then we may spread that out as we get comfortable working together. And then from a data perspective, we can either give them access to things like Google Sheets where they have real-time access, but at a minimum, they would get a status report every week. So if they don't want to get into the weeds of the data, then we can obviously review that data with them on the weekly status calls.
Excellent. And just to wrap this up, we've got 2 pieces of this puzzle. The platforms that you guys use to support delivery or that you may need from a client, and what people are in the background kind of supporting this effort when you think about the team that you guys have that a client would expect to have supporting the delivery of this service.
Yep. So from a platform perspective, we use a variety of data sources depending on the customer. So if you're an e-commerce company, there's specific niche sites that we use, but the big ones that most people will be familiar are things like ZoomInfo, Seamless, Apollo. So we use those. We also use LinkedIn as a really great resource, so we can pull out data from LinkedIn. So from a data perspective, that's our go-to. For LinkedIn automation, we use a tool called Expandy. And then we can also send emails from Expandy if the sequences are tying your LinkedIn outreach with your email outreach. And then I mentioned Apollo. Apollo also helps us do the lead generation from an email perspective. So we use Apollo for that. And then we use a tool called Orem, ORUM. So that is our auto dialer. So that's where it gets interesting. I can call 200 to 300 people in an hour if I want. So you can really scale up. But we try to advise our customers to be more focused on quality than just sheer volume of calling for the sake of calling.
Good deal. And the people?
Yep. And from a people perspective, everyone on our team is East Coast US based. And then we're all background or tech sellers. So myself and the team are all seasoned pros, cold calling all the way to fully closing deals. And then we ideally for SDR as a service, we'll put 2 people on the calling. So there's some redundancy if I'm on vacation or you're on vacation and vice versa. Plus, we can not only A/B test our messaging, we can A/B test the people. So if one person's doing better than the other, and then it also gives us the ability to scale. So if you start wanting to scale out teams, and we already have 2 people that are familiar with you, so we can start building out additional people into that team.
Got it. Super clear. Now for the last question. What can a client expect in the first 120 days of buying this service? So we're talking about the time frame for onboarding and what they can expect during that time, how long it might last, and the first 3 months to manage their expectations around performance and give them a feel for what that should look like if they sign on with JTD Group for this particular service.
Yep. So the first thing in month 1 is we'll have a kickoff call and we'll start gathering all the data points. We also use things like ChatGPT to answer a lot of our onboarding questions and then get you to validate our assumptions. So within the first couple of weeks is really when we'll finalize all of that. In the meantime, if we're going to be using things like automation, like for email and LinkedIn, it generally takes around 30 days to fully ramp up a brand new email address or your LinkedIn account if you haven't used it. So typically in month 1, I try to set expectations that we're just really getting the messaging down, getting the automation working. Ideally, I'd like to start seeing, appointments being set, within that first month. And then for month 2, month 3, I'm really looking to give you one solid sales qualified lead a week. And by sales qualified lead, just to be simple, I use BANT. So, the decision maker is the person you're meeting with, right? There's a budget, a need, and a timeline. And I want 3 of the 4 of those. So sometimes they may have a need, but it's 6 months out or it's 12 months out, right? So some of our clients do, we're moving our SAP environment to AWS. That's not going to be a 6-month or 3-month sales cycle, but if you're not in a year early, you're not going to drive your agenda to get that deal in a year. So now, once we get that going, our goal, depending on the size of deals that you're looking at, if say your sales cycle is 60 days, right? You may start seeing closed revenue in month 3. If, and a lot of those might be discovery sessions like, hey, we're going to do a discovery, a POC, proof of concept. It might be a pilot, all of those things. If you can get those in the first, 3 months to 6 months, that's great. So that's usually where our clients are, and then they land and expand based on that. So month 3 to 6, you might be closing these $30,000 to $50,000 projects, and then you get that second phase. And ultimately, the goal for me is to get our clients, $1 to $2 million in revenue after working with us for a year, so they can really see legit ROI.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I think that really clarifies some things for folks that are taking a look at the listing for the managed SDR team services. Is there anything else you would like to add or make sure that anyone viewing this understands about your managed SDR team offer?
Yeah, I mean, just from a high level, we just want to work with our clients to, we want a small number of clients that we can work really well with and have, proven results. So we're not trying to, be an SDR company for everybody. So if you're a tech company and you're struggling and you need sales, whether you're a startup or you're a NetApp, we're happy to work with you.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Tim. That wraps us up for today, and we will catch you on the next one.
Appreciate it, everybody.